Okay, welcome everybody to a mid-season special edition of Forever Bristol City podcast. It's not quite midway through the season. There's 2 games to go, starting at West Brom on Saturday, and then the first of 2 home Christmas fixtures on Luton, against Luton on Boxing Day. That is the actual halfway point, but close enough for us to do one of these, and we'll probably do another one maybe after the Christmas New Year fixtures and after the cup game against Wolves. I'm delighted to be joined by a regular media pundit, but more important than that, somebody who's actually played the game, and that's Gary Hour. As we all know Gary, and his knowledge is unrivaled compared to myself. And joining us on FBC for the first time, good to meet him in person for the first time at Radio Bristol a couple of weeks ago, is Tom Hicks. And then Ellie Jones, who's known on Twitter and Radio Bristol, and a good speaker on Bristol City over recent years. So welcome to you all. Are we all feeling, never mind the football, are we all ready for Christmas? Ellie, first, you.
No, I've not wrapped a single present.
Yeah, what about you, Tom?
Yeah, I am, to be fair. I think, I'll try to get it done early, like December, so I'm not rushing around now. But yeah, I'm all sorted.
And what about you, Gary? You're going to be busy covering football, but I guess the best Christmas present you could have is that you were telling me about it the other day. Josh is making a recovery from his nasty injury. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about that and what you got planned for him over Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, I had my Christmas party last night in Birmingham. No, Ellie's heading there at the weekend, so should enjoy that. Josh, he's coming on great, actually. I think he's just been in hospital today. I haven't caught up with him yet today, but he's had the wires removed from his jaw and seen the head specialist. So hopefully some good news, and he can start his recovery.
Fantastic. All right, I'll stick with you, Gary, first off. Given where we were a year ago when it was, this is a good squad and better coached, it can be even better. We finished the season well. There was the expectation back in the close season with signings made. We got the hallmark signing of Scott Twine and others. We'll talk about each of them individually. But at this halfway point, are we where we are and where we can expect to be, or have we fallen short?
I think you've got to say that we have fallen short a little bit. You've got to be honest about it. Don't really want to go back and start talking about what was said at the time, because we've all moved on from that, and we have to get over that. But there were conditions attached or reasonings given for Liam coming in, and we were told that he was coming in to coach a top 6 side, and we've never been in the top 6, and we're no nearer to getting there now than we have been. Well, we're 7 points off, so maybe even. Got to be careful. Really important period coming up that we don't drop off the pace even more and fall deeper into mid-table and with no chance and nothing much to play for the rest of the season, other than to do what we normally do and finish slap bang in the middle of the table.
Ellie, again, don't want to dwell on the past, as Gary said, but expectations were managed for a number of years when we were struggling, but there was a lot of hope, particularly with the way we finished the season and the transfer activity. We got the man, maybe we got too many men, but how are you feeling at the halfway point?
Frustration and disappointment are the key words at the moment. I think, not just speaking for myself as an individual, I think after Saturday, there's kind of a feeling of acceptance now that we're kind of heading towards another season of mid-table. Too many missed opportunities, several games now that we will reflect on we should have won. But how many times can you keep saying we should have won, we should have won, we should have won? Not enough goals scored. And on the flip side, you could say that we've got a weak underbelly to not see out certain games, in particular against Sheffield United and Sunderland. To be leading 85. We should never have lost that game against Sheffield United and Sunderland. It was right at the death. But this isn't just a this season problem. This is a continuation problem that we've had for years. That 2-1 against Sheffield United reminded me of Forest. Remember Forest?
I remember that one. Yeah.
Forest. So this is a reoccurring problem and something that we still cannot seem to get out of the loop of.
Okay. Tom, what are your thoughts? I mean, Gary said we haven't been in the top 5. We were for about 20 minutes against Sheffield United. And then I think I read there've been various statistics, and I'm no statistician at all, but I think we've lost 9 points in the last 5 minutes of games. So that's not points from winning positions. We've gained quite a few from winning positions as well. But as Ellie alluded to, conceding a lot at a wrong time in the match. What are your thoughts and feelings there in general?
Yeah, I think they're both spot on, to be fair. I mean, I don't know, it's just difficult we got the squad, I'd say it's the happiest I've been with the squad for, I can't remember how long. I think the depth we've got, I know we've had a bit of an injury crisis, but we seem to be on the other end of that. But it's just seeing out games like QPR, I know Plymouth were bad, but QPR were so poor, and we still give them a point, a bad mistake, but they were in the games. After that goal, they sort of built into the game a bit more. And the Sheffield United game, as Ellie said, I mean, that was just a different level of bad. That was exactly like Forest was the other year. And if you want to be in the playoffs, then games like that, you've either got to see out, or if you can't win, don't lose. And that Sheffield United game, we lost, like 1-0 up, lose 2-1, which is I know where the guys are coming from. It's just massively, massively frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Gary, how would you assess Liam Manning's performance? I mean, we got to temper it by saying he had the tragedy of losing his son, but you know, life goes on. I'm sure he does work many hours at trying to improve, you know, the technical side of the game. He's one of these modern managers, but you know, do you give him a B- or a C+? All things considered, what's your view on how he's done? And in-game management as well. In-game management.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the overall performance, and I'll go back to what I said at the start. Have we really improved? You know, would you rather watch this team with? And I know teams evolve, but you know, we were watching a team with Semenyo, Scott, and Conway in. And are we watching a team that's as exciting now? Hirakawa and Mehmeti, are they going to be consistent enough? But in terms of performance, have we really improved? I don't know how anyone can argue that we have. You know, the benchmark is the league position and the number of points. We haven't won back-to-back games yet all season. That's a massive thing. And you think we've had some brilliant away results, winning at Middlesbrough, winning at Norwich, then you come back to Ashton Gate and you can't back that up with anything. And Ellie's highlight the fact we've dropped late points. You know, we should have won at Sunderland. We should have won at Hull first game of the season.
Yeah.
You know, these are all, you know, you nick them points and you get somewhere up and around the playoff places. But I looked at the top 6, the teams that were well beaten by Blackburn have had a good run. We got a draw at Sunderland, you know, Sheffield United beat us, and so on and so on. So we've always struggled to sort of win the big games. Burnley beat us.
Point against Leeds at home.
Yeah. So they're the games that we've got to get up for and put on a display. But Liam, I'll be honest, and it wouldn't be a B or a C, it'd be a 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
With room for improvement. And you know, anyone that can convince us otherwise, it will be a good conversation, because how are we really going to get where everyone wants to be, and that's in around the playoff positions? You said we've been there once for 20 minutes, but that's not challenging. That's that's been in and fallen out. We haven't quite made it, and
I think we went from 5th to 11th. I think we went from 5th to 11th that night in the space of 20 minutes. But yeah. So,
I mean, that's where I'm at with it. This is the big thing for me. I look at the time that he's been here, and somebody disagree if you want to, please. The best run of results he had was at the end of last season, and we won consecutive games, and we played 3 centre halves and a different formation. And we got stuffed at Stoke on the last game of the season, but they've got analysts. And surely someone in the club must say, hey, look at this run of results that we had playing this formation. They've got the players to play the formation, no doubt about it. At some point, I'll be thinking, let's go back to that, because we've had success. That was the most success that Liam's had. most consistency, best run of results. And then you come away from it now to the point where we're at. And a lot of the team's the same formation. And at the minute, he's developing a reputation for making substitutions that are just the same.
Like for like substitutions.
Like for like substitutions. And no effect on the game. Yeah, the players have done as individuals, but nothing too tactical where they throw in something different. They change formation and they go and win again.
It's safe, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like, Ellie, and the players coming off the bench are the same players. Yeah. It's becoming very much the same.
Johnny Pine has said on the text here, I enjoy watching us now, just fed up of coming away from every game saying we deserve more points from those games. And Ellie, we are the 8th highest scorers in the division. So, you take those two things together. And also, I think Johnny's right. When we play well, it is quite exciting. But what does Liam need to do different in game, do you think, that would have people thinking better of him?
It's not just now though that the subs and the like for like has been a problem. He's been doing this since the start. Taking off one striker, bringing on another striker, taking off, taking off Naki. Just continuing what Gary's just saying, it's Watford had one shot on target and they scored. We battered them all that.
We battered them the first half.
We battered them at Stoke. We were half asleep in the first 10 minutes, conceded 2, were 2-0 down, then went on to have 20 plus shots. It's a combination of things that we're struggling with. It's not just kind of, I know creativity and chances is the main struggle that we've got, because unfortunately the players that we brought in haven't lived up to our expectations, and perhaps the hierarchy thought how they would be. But at the moment, I think we've got too many problems that are accounting to why we are where we are. And it is not an overnight fix. Gary says about changing the formation, going to a back 3. Yes, but I don't think that helps that we've had 2 right-sided players out injured for a long time. Tanner McCrory's been out since Leeds. We've had George Earthy playing at right back. We've had Zach playing at right back, not comfortable. He put Roberts on at the end of Sunderland. Uncomfortable, led to their goal. So I think you kind of just got to go back to base.
He's still learning.
He's still working out.
Yeah, he's learning. Yeah. He's learning on the job. I mean, Lee Johnson learned on the job at Championship level. Tom, what's your feeling about how, because Liam is a coach, he's on the grass more than other people were.
Yeah.
But what's your assessment of him at this halfway point?
I got to be fair. I think he probably has underachieved with the money that was spent in the window. I mean, that's quite big money for the Championship, especially where we were at. I didn't expect us to sign half of those players, let alone I think we signed 8 or 9 if you include Bird, which I think you couldn't have asked for any better signings. But the strikers haven't cut it, and then I feel like the in-game management, as you guys mentioned, bringing on the sub for Naki, and that doesn't really work, and we sort of just pass it around. It feels like we're passing sideways and backwards all game. In the midfield, I mean, Dickie and McNally must have about 1,000 touches a game, just passing it to the left back.
You say that, Tom, but then as Ellie said, against Stoke, we had 20 shots, we came back from 2-0 down. We've had a couple of games at home where, peppered the goal, absolutely peppered the goal, and not put it in. And I personally don't understand XG and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But is it all about quality?
I think, if you look, Sinclair, Armstrong and Mueller, I don't feel that they've got that quality. I could be proved wrong. You never know. West Brom, one of them could score and they could go on a run. But from what I've seen, and it's almost Christmas, so I don't think that they'll cut it for City anyway. And I know Mueller, you could say writing him off, but he's had one game. He has started only one game, which is fair enough. But I just can't see them doing it. So we're in a proper situation there with Wells at contract. I don't know what the plan is with the 2 strikers and Wells. I just don't know where that's going. But overall, with Manning, I'm fairly content with him. I'd like to be, as you said, 4 more points, and we'd be looking all right. 4
more points.
Yeah. But it's getting those 4 points, and that's what we struggle with. As you guys have mentioned, seeing out games, we're 1-0 up, we'll concede 1-1, and then can't get the winning goal, which that's the problem at the minute.
Yeah, I can't believe somebody put on here Ryan Hughes. He said glad Tanner's been out. I haven't. He's probably one of the best performers that were in there. Let's start talking about players that were brought in. Gary, you've been an advocate of Liam changing the style and playing with 2 strikers, and it's not an 11-man team anymore. It's a 20-game match day squad, although there's probably at least 3 players on the City bench at the moment that aren't going to get a whiff in any shape or form. We have a manager that plays 1 striker. That's fact, yeah? And at the moment, we got Naki, we got Mayulu, we got Cornick, we got Armstrong, and we got Sam Bell. And we let Seb Palmer-Holden go out on loan at the start of the season. Who'd have thought, based on everything we were told back in the summer, that Naki Wells would be our first choice striker?
Yeah, well, I mean that's a problem, and I might have changed my mind. I'd still like to see 2 players play up front for sure, but at the start of the season, I was looking at Sinclair, Armstrong, and Fally. I mean, he hit the ground running, didn't he? He scored 2 goals very early on.
Yes,
Sinclair was causing problems. Now, at this stage, Sinclair Armstrong has played himself out of the team, and Fally Mayula can't play himself into the team. So we have a problem there. Experienced centre forward. Now, he's done a great job, but 34 out of contract. And you just said that we're a team that can score goals. Imagine how good would be, or how much our position would improve if we had a 20-goal a season striker. And we haven't got that. And well, we haven't got that at the moment. Can we develop one of these young players? But it doesn't look like that. Fally looks shot to pieces. I watched him when he come on Saturday, and I'm desperate for him to do well. You know what I mean? But he looked lost. Sinclair's injured, so he's not available. So maybe Fally might get an opportunity in the next couple of weeks that he wasn't going to get, and he can grab that. But he's been here.
Can I just jump in?
Yeah, by all means. Go
We've got, just in terms of our next run of fixtures, talking about Naki, and he's 34. We've got 4 games in 11 games. I think that needs to be taken into account. If Armstrong's injured, Bell's coming back from injury. Wells isn't gonna play and start all those games. He can't. So, but then if he doesn't trust Fally, or he doesn't think Fally's up for it,
well, why doesn't he bring? I know everybody would say, as a group here now, Cornick will not be in Bristol City by August. He may not even be here in January. But you got an experienced player on the bench in Cornick. I say he's never let us down. I mean, Gary, would you, over Christmas, if you've got such a lack of confidence in...
Needs must. I mean, he's sat there. I feel for him a little bit. He's sat there. He's not getting on the pitch. So you think he's either going to, be the first one out the door in January, because he can't be enjoying it. But if he sat there part of the squad, and you think he can get, you know what he'll give us. He'll stretch teams. He'll always give 100%. That's for sure. He hasn't been prolific. He's nicked the odd goal. But, you've got to look at what options you've got. Last year, we saw Jason Knight was playing more central through the middle. We've tried Bird there. I think he's better in midfield. Sam Bell can play through the middle, but it's a problem. Ellie's right. Naki can't be expected to start all the games over Christmas and New Year, so he's got to find a solution.
Tom, what are your thoughts? And we've got all these strikers, and just look at the wage costs of them as a collective. And I'm seeing there, Naki is your experienced pro. Sam, I know he was out at the start of the season, but he's a young player. He's more of a breakthrough. Well, he's getting older now, but he's still at that breakthrough stage. We've got the wages of Armstrong, Fally, and Cornick, right? Really and truthfully, you aggregate those wages together and not have those individual players there,
and what
you probably get a decent striker.
Yeah, you could, but
cost, and how long will they persevere with? Do you come to a point with Fally, if he's not in the team, how long are you going to keep him before you say it hasn't worked out, he hasn't settled? That might be one of the reasons, and you have to look either to move him on, or if you're bringing more players in, then we're just collecting players, like you say.
But he can't be happy as well, can he? Getting 12-minute cameos.
No, how's he going to?
How
big ask.
How can you expect someone to make that much of an impact in 12 minutes?
But he's got to start him. He could prove, he could say, right, he's his own man, Liam, isn't he? He could start him in one of the games, and then if he makes an absolute pig's ear of it, I mean, we've seen managers take players off after half an hour of being impactful. Then, if Fally has got to have a future, he's got to start again. Tom, back. Let's let Tom have a quick word.
Yeah, I could honestly see Fally going in January. I really could, and then I think they'll just bite the bullet. They won't come out and say we got it wrong, but I don't. Even before he joined in the Austrian league, he hadn't really started that many games in his career. So we got this sort of. He scored 2 goals early doors, and it looked like we got this false sort of hope from him, thinking he'll be the next sort of 15, 20 goal season striker, and he's miles off it. He is absolutely miles off. When he comes on, he doesn't know when to press. It just feels like he's always a couple yards away from where the ball is. So I'm not the manager, but if I could, I'd definitely get rid of one of Müller or Armstrong, because I can't see them coming good.
And Cornick as well, let him go out on loan. I know he's just had a baby and he's local, so he's seeing out his contract. He's still got a while to go yet on it, hasn't he?
Yeah. I think with Cornick, clearly Manning doesn't think he's up to it, and it was like Cornick was likely to go in the summer. Obviously, that didn't come to fruition, but I'd play Cornick, even if it's a 20-minute cameo at the end of the game. I think just chuck them on, press their defence, and see what can happen. Because Müller and Armstrong, they don't seem to really, they're just not dynamic. I thought they would be. With the clips I saw before they joined, I thought they'd be, we got a player here.
I know Armstrong's dynamic. I just think he's not natural. He's got pace and power. Fair to him, but he's not natural finisher, is he? He gets in the same chance all the time, inside, right or left channel, and he can't finish.
He's not prolific at all. I mean, what did he score at QPR? 3 goals in 60 games?
When people used to chuck that statistic out there, I said, 3 goals in 60 games, but they weren't 60 starts. It was
like 35 starts, but still, that ain't prolific. But if he brings something, that's fair enough. But if we aren't going to utilise what he brings, then what are we trying to achieve with him? Because he ain't going to be able to play sort of the passing, slow-moving sort of game we try and play. He wants to be running in channels, but we aren't really playing like that. So it's a tricky one.
Gary, some people were saying, and I think it was, not, when I say some people, I read it somewhere, so that's always better than what you see on Twitter, that, when the last 20 minutes against QPR, when Fally came on and when Scott Twine came on, he scored a wonderful goal, but the press that even the QPR manager had been saying was sort of very much sort of a good part of our game, it seemed to evaporate. And it then brings me on to Scott Twine scored a goal, has been injured, but for me, it was Earthy or Twine, not both. What do you say to that? And what do you think of Scott so far?
I mean, what an impact. You don't see that very often. Take your tracksuit top off, pick the ball up and bend it over the wall. Brilliant impact. And we know he's capable of that, but we can't just sort of sit and wait that we get a free kick or a corner before we see the best of him. I think he's got to add a lot more. Fally, again, I hope he hasn't got a problem with communication. Come from another country and can't be using that as an excuse because you do your homework before you bring players in. But I don't know. He just come on and he just looked like he's not getting there. He's not switched on. He's not ready for it. I think it's confidence with him. I think he's come over here. He thought everything was brilliant at the start, and all of a sudden he's sat on the bench. He can't get on. He's watching other players get selected ahead of him, and he just didn't look ready. I won't say he's not interested because I'm sure he is, but not ready for action.
And what about Scott Twine? Who was the marquee signing, and we were all impressed with when we saw what we bought. I think Ellie said a moment ago. Everybody's saying, "Oh, some decent players there," but the marquee signing Scott. How do you rate him so far?
I think we same as last year. Last year, I didn't quite see what everyone was so excited about and why he got the big build up. But for sure, he's talented. He can be a match winner on his day. But you know what? He's got to bring something more, I think, week in, week out to the team, and playing in a wide position, Is he, or can he do them defensive duties that are required to play in that position? And obviously playing in a central position, will he sort of be in the right position or have the right attitude again to do the defensive side of the game? So that's what we need to see in the coming weeks and months.
Ellie, your thoughts on Scott? Because he was played out left to begin with. Yeah, then he was injured for a bit. Then he's come back in. We seem to do no work. He wasn't a player that really made a step up, and that applied towards the end of last season as well. I know he scored a couple of goals then, but was he worth the money, and is he living up to what you expected now that he's here permanently, Ellie?
I think the jury's out a little bit with Twine still. I think he's a little bit of a luxury player in my eyes. Comes on and scores a great free kick, but then what really did he do afterwards to really affect the game? I know what happened with their goal completely changed our game and how we were playing. But Earthy was more busy in the 10 when he started from minute 1 than how Twine was and what he offered us when he came on. I know there was a time on the pitch when they were both playing. Just at the moment, just doesn't quite do enough for me. But again, he's sort of been in and out of the team. It's just finding that consistency and assisting more and chipping him with more goals. What's he on now? 3 goals. He got, he's the best corner taker for us at the club, I think, in terms of his set pieces. But we don't score enough from set pieces.
But he doesn't score. Does he take all the set pieces? I don't think he does.
No, we had on Saturday from the right, we had 3 different corner takers. And that was probably when he was on the pitch as well.
Watch Bird the next time he takes a corner and see if he can beat the first man.
He always looks like he's doing a lazy lob, Bird, when he takes a corner. I have to say. Tom, what do you think? I mean, if you look at we seem to, people correct me if I'm wrong here, but we seem to be playing, if there's any pattern up front, because it is I think the 6 players, and that includes Max, almost select themselves and we're strong. When you get to the front 5, what is the best front 5? And we seem to be playing, let's call it with Naki, Mehmeti on the right, and then Mehmeti on the left, Hirakawa on the right. Maybe Sykes would be getting there if he was fit. But then, if you play Bird in behind Naki, then you're pushing Twine out on the left, which is not what he was brought in for. What do you think of him, and how do we get the best out of the players that we've got?
Yeah, well, I think if you ask Manning, you've got to play someone for 46 games non-stop, he'd probably pick Twine. It seems he does like Twine. It's clear he was his number 1 man in the summer. But, I mean, as Gary said, his loan spell last season, I didn't think he was amazing. I could see why people liked him, but I wouldn't have been rushing out to spend 4 or whatever million on him. But, like, the free kick is quality. You can see he does possess quality. But, yeah, I'd actually play Bird in the 10. I do like Bird in the 10, and then Knight and McGuane just behind him. But Twine, I think he's here for a 4-year contract, so I think he will come good. And we know he's set piece, free kicks, things like that. But yeah, I haven't quite seen and it just feels like he's always in the ref's ear. I mean, all game he'll be just like sort of whinging at the ref. If you watch, the ball's gone and he's still going on. But yeah, I mean, he's a great player, don't get me wrong, but he hasn't quite lived up to it yet, I wouldn't say.
Gary, fast front foot flowing football, to coin a phrase, demands speedy wingers. We seem to be playing, I said just a second ago, we got Mehmeti, who's, I think it's 9 goals in about 30 games. So, he's frustrating, but he's got that left wing berth. Hirakawa's come in, to me, not made an impact. What are your thoughts on those 2 players so far this season?
Yeah, Mehmeti, you can't take your top scorer out of the team because you obviously just taking goals out of the team. That doesn't make any sense. Hirakawa initially grabbed everyone's attention, and then after that, we're at the point again where how's he going to finish the season? Are we going to get that consistency? It's a real shame Mark Sykes got injured because I think he was coming back into form. And a good Mark Sykes is a very good player. I think he can create and he can score and add goals to the team. So I think if he was fit and firing, he'd be in my side. And then, you know, we're back to this formation, 2 central midfielders, 1 behind the centre forward. Any amount of players could play there. If you've got Sykes on one side and Mehmeti on the other, then that leaves Earthy, Twine, Bell, Knight, Bird, probably
McGuane,
somebody else. You know,
Williams is injured at the moment.
Yeah, so I mean, we've got a bigger squad. We've got loads and loads of options, even at the back. You know, I'll be really interested when the centre halves or the right backs get fit to see what happens with Zach, you know, and Rob Dickey and Luke McNally. Will that edge one of them out of the team? Will that force his hand to keep them in the team and go to a back 3? So that will be interesting.
Well, talk about that in a second. Ellie, let me come to you on the wide players. For me, I say it's Mehmeti or Hirakawa.
Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Hey, who's Santa Claus?
Me.
Yeah. I saw that. What is Santa doing talking about Bristol City whilst pointing at Gary? That is you. That is you. For me, Ellie, it's Mehmeti or Hirakawa, not both. And then if Sykes is fit, well, Mehmeti keeps that position just by virtue of his goals, because Sykes has never got anywhere near the total Mehmeti's got together. But what do we do about the fast wide players that
well,
seem to be featuring?
Yeah, like Gary said, you can't drop Anis, because Anis on his day is, you know, is good as anyone, but Anis is also the most frustrating player that we've got in the squad. Drives me up the wall half the time, but then we know what he's capable of. That, you know, he took his goal brilliantly against Plymouth, but if Anis was consistent like that every game, he wouldn't be playing for Bristol City, would he? So with you, it's gone a little bit static for me at the moment. I think he's struggling a little bit. You know, the opposition, they do tend to, you know, double up on him, you know. So I think he's struggling a little bit at the moment. I don't know whether that is just with where we're at towards the season, if he's struggling with, you know, fatigue, but we've got a lot of games coming up again. I
wonder how he's adapting to the diet. There's only one decent Japanese restaurant in Bristol, so I'm told.
I don't. How far away is Sykes? I know McCrory's obviously back in contention and was on the bench, but Sykes, if he's fit, then I think he's got to come into the team.
He comes in on that side.
He comes in on that right for me. I don't think we need to be switching anybody from right to left.
Okay.
I think you keep Anis on the left, and when Sykes is back, Sykes comes in for me, and I think you use you as more of an impact player.
I think that's a good point there.
Yeah.
Tom Mehmeti, you know, he is inconsistent, but this season he's had a good calendar year. If you look at the tail end of last season and where we are now, and as Ellie said, and many have said, you know, if he was so consistent, he wouldn't be playing for us. He'd be a saleable asset, which we don't really have too many of those at the moment. They're going to get big money. And on Saturday against QPR, if he puts that chance away in 2-0, that is 3 points.
Yeah,
you know, we're 5 points off the playoffs. And look, I think if that had gone in, if a lot of people had said at the halfway stage we're 5 points off the playoffs rather than 7, probably more by the time we played West Brom, although you never know. But Mehmeti, he keeps his place, I think, in all 4 of our views on merit this season. Yes.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, as Ellie said, Mehmeti is so frustrating. It's unwatchable at times. He sort of beats his man, comes back, tries to do the same thing again. You just think, get on with it. But I think this season he's shown what he is about. But as you said, I think you said on a previous pod that he's a £1 million player. If he was, and you said if he's more consistent, he wouldn't be playing for Bristol City. But I mean, he's a nailed-on starter now, and he has become as the season's gone on. But regarding the other side, I think Hirakawa is definitely an impact player. He goes missing. If, as people have said, they double up on him, and then that's game over. Then he might as well just get subbed off. When they've doubled up, he ain't getting past them. Yeah. And it sort of feels. I think someone mentioned it. Has he been coached to change his game, Hirakawa? I think he has a little bit, because when he first came, his first few appearances, he was direct. He was getting at them. I think his first home game, he was literally tearing the fullbacks apart, and now he's sort of looks to be going backwards and don't really look to have that spark that he did. But I'm not sure.
I mean, you say that about him. I remember a few years ago now, Hanoa Masengo. Remember what he was like the first few games that he came on, and even Gary said earlier, Sinclair Armstrong. He was powerful, and his substitute appearance, I think it was up at Sunderland or one of the away games he came on. It was so lethargic and shoulders down, just not interested. I think we will all be in agreement on one thing here, that Sykes, who's out of contract this summer, we should be talking to him now about his contract, because he's a player. There's not many. I've got a list of the ones that are out of contract in the summer, but I think we're all in agreement, yes, from each of you, or disagree on Sykes' a contract. Ellie, a contract for Sykes?
100%, yeah.
Tom?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
And Gary?
Yeah, you'll always be in my team if he's fit. I mean, that's a big thing at Bristol City, isn't it? Look at some of the players that were brought in. I'm thinking about Cal Naismith, Ross McCrory. Haven't had the best of times. Joe Williams, with injuries, and we seem to suffer more than most, actually. So it'd be brilliant to have a squad of fit players for a run of games, a good sequence of games.
But as a pro, Gary, you being a pro, and it was different then with agents and stuff like that. I don't know how old Sykes is. In fact, I can tell you how old Sykes is. He's born in 97, so he's was it 20, 30? How old
27.
27, right? Yeah. If you're his agent, you're going to be saying to him, get you a better deal than Bristol City. Have got to be trying to tie Sykes down now, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, the only agent I ever had was a travel agent at the end of the season. That's all I ever used. But it's one of them, isn't it? And we've seen different circumstances. Matty James and Joe Williams playing week in, week out at the end of last season, out of contract. Alex Scott playing, not going to sign a new contract. Tommy Conway sort of banished to the youth ranks because he wouldn't sign a contract, and now we've got Narky playing, going to be out of contract. So how they deal with it as well is important. Like you say, have they made him an offer? Have they sort of open negotiations? Or will he just sit on it and his agent doing what we all do, is ring round the
contract? Naki's out of contract in the summer. He's 35. Now, we lost experienced heads when Andy King. Yeah, we lost experienced heads out of the dressing room when Andy King and Matty James went, and we should have kept
and Vyman
and Andy Vyman. Yeah. Do you think? Well, two questions, each of you. Would you give Naki a contract, and will he be offered a contract? You first, Ellie.
I would. I think they will do something along the lines of Joe Williams and offer him reduced terms again. But on the last contract, I think he was on reduced terms.
He was.
It's down to the player at the end of the day, isn't it? I hope that we've given him, or we're thinking about offering him a new deal, because I think he's deserved it.
I think he's worth one.
Yeah.
Tom, do you think he's worth it, even though he's 35 next summer? And will they give it, bearing in mind that we don't seem to hang on to experience in the dressing room?
Yeah, I definitely want to keep him, but it's whether they might offer him a year and he might want 2 years, which is something that I think could happen. But I don't see him going any lower. I don't think anyone could really afford his wages, to be honest. I think even if he with reduced terms, I think he'd still be on good money. But yeah, I definitely keep him, especially with our striker situation. If we don't have him, I mean, we might as well just name 10 players, because no one else can play up there. So yeah, but I think I'd love to keep him. I think he's been good.
Okay, Gary, do you concur with that
view?
I'd
keep him appearance-based contract, and do you know what else? I'd give him a coaching role. I'd make him strikers coach, because I think you're not going to sort of work with anyone with his experience. He's still scoring at international level. He knows what it's all about, and I think he could actually help, particularly the players that we've got at the moment that are struggling a little bit.
Yeah. Sticking on that point, Gary, about players, do you think any attempts were made to offer anything to Andy King or Matty James? Because, you think one of those now, just in the match day 20, or just around the place, it just brings experience, doesn't it? Yeah.
Clearly not. If Matty James had any offer, he would have signed it because he didn't have a club, did he? He was only sort of recently joined Wrexham, so I don't think he was made an offer. And the same with Andy King. You know, he was talked about as being player coach, and to what extent his coaching role was, we don't know. But again, local lad, I'm sure if he'd been made an offer, then he would have signed something.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think they were offered anything.
Okay. Let's look at the
Andy,
Sorry, Eddie, go on.
King's got a coaching role with Leicester.
Yeah, seen that.
King's got a coaching role with Leicester.
So maybe
move back up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think his
the
family
conspiracy
home is,
theorists that say they were eased out for nefarious reasons. You know, as you say, King's gone back to Leicester and Matty wanted to play, and it is what it is. Let's look at the midfield. I say we sort of covered the front end. How are we rating Jason Knight's performance? Start with you first, Tom. This season, I mean, he's sort of been used in various positions. I even mooted the idea of him playing at right back, which he'd played about 7 games there for Derby over a 2-year period. Yeah, and that's no off the wall than playing Mark Sykes there. But what are your thoughts on Jason?
I think he's quality. I think probably first, I could see why they gave him captain. I know in the fans forum he said he ain't so much a leader, but I think first name on the team sheet for me anyway. I know he pops up with goals as well. The Swansea away pops up with assists, so I think he'd probably be our most sellable asset as well. With a team that gets promoted to the Prem, I think if you're looking at Jason Knight to be sort of a squad player along that lines, I don't know why you wouldn't do that. I mean, hopefully no one's watching from other clubs, but yeah, I think he's spot on. Every week he's probably one of our best performers, really. So yeah.
Wasn't so great at Portsmouth, but then
but no one was. Yeah,
Gary, Bristol City's player of the season for you so far, Jason. If you had to pick one,
he'd be up there. I'd have to have a good think about that. I think, but consistent box to box midfielder. I think the only thing that's missing this season is maybe a goal or two. But his defensive attributes are underrated, especially defending set plays and corners in his own box, because he heads the ball as well as anyone. And I think his performance probably against Plymouth a couple of weeks ago was absolutely outstanding. So that was him at his best.
What do you think, Ellie?
Yeah, he's an engine, isn't he? He's a runner. His off the ball work is fantastic. I think we just got to draw a line under what happened at Pompey. You know, people going to say it was his worst game ever, but you know, Jason Knight's an 8-9 out of 10 player every game. But like Gary said, throughout the whole midfield, they're still not chipping in with enough goals between them this season. Nowhere near enough.
Yeah. We're sticking with midfield. I just want to pick up on a point before we do. Patrick March has said on the text feed, we have got a year option in our favour in respect of Sykes. So, you know, we'll clearly be taking up that year option on him. Tom, Marcus McGuane, I was in that group of fans that were saying, oh, what do we sign him for? You know, what do we need him for? Blah, blah, blah. You know, we're buying clubs in the bag again, to use a phrase. He started slow in his very first game, but I think he's proved a useful addition. If you look at his pedigree, Barcelona and Arsenal before it all went a bit haywire. But what do you think of him so far?
I sort of was in the same thoughts as you with what have we signed him for? I mean, he's been sort of frozen out at Oxford, hasn't really been playing much. Was on the bench probably 8 or 9 times for us without getting on. But I know what you said when he first started, he a bit slow, but I think he's been a great sort of asset, really. I mean, to fill in, especially you thought when Williams got injured, who's going to play that role? And he comes in, does it as good, if not better than Williams. So, yeah, I mean, I could see him probably when Williams is back. That's a tricky one. Who's going to play then?
Start? But that was going to be my next question. Because what we've seen, I mean, Williams got his new contract, and he was pretty damn good last season most of the time. Williams, McGuane, who edges it for you when they're both fit on what you've seen so far this season?
I could probably see him, if Williams is back fully fit, I think he'd probably go with Williams, to be fair, alongside Knight, I think, just personally, but just use McGuane maybe as a squad player, but I'm not too sure.
Gary, you alluded to the term acquiring players, and when we acquired McGuane, we didn't know that Joe was going to get injured. And at the time, we still had Ross McCrory fit, and Ross McCrory can play in midfield. I mean, was he necessary? Maybe not. But since he has come in, I think he's done okay. Would you concur with that view?
Oh, I agree with that. I think he looks a good footballer. Again, if he's going to be in the team, we know he can keep the ball. He's a technical player, and he's been quite good turning the ball over as well, which has surprised me. But again, midfield players got to try and create goals. You got to try and nick a goal somehow, and we can't have too many players in the team that actually look easy on the eye, but don't deliver anything. And I'm thinking Masengo, 100 games, 1 assist, no goals.
No goals.
And everybody used to think he's, well, however good they thought he was, but he got a lot of
publicity. They had a good song. He had a
great song and got a lot of attention. But I used to look and think, well, what does he actually do? He runs about and he wins the ball back and then he'll give it away. So hopefully Marcus McGuane will see that he can be creative. And I think that was one of the selection problem for Liam. Williams, Knight and Bird all fit at the start of the season. Joe Williams, you can't ask Joe Williams to sign a new contract and then like a couple of weeks later say, by the way, you're not going to play in the team. So if he is fit and firing, he'd be another one I'd have in the team.
And that's what he did because he got them all in. And then that's when he played Scott Twine out of position because at the time Hirakawa was still injured because of the Olympics. So I think you said on Radio Bristol the other week, Gary, there are players coming back to fitness now. There's going to be a few team selection problems to address, which we'll come on to in a second. I got to pick up on a point Peter Thompson's made on the text feed here. He said, not sure if you already mentioned it, but what about Max? Don't worry, we're coming on to him. We started at the front and we're working back. I mean, when it comes to defence, Ellie, we don't appear to have any problems. We're a little bit leaky. We're a little bit leaky at the start of the season, but we were scoring goals at the start of the season as well. We had that, positive start. But I think we got an embarrassment of riches back there, don't you? I mean, I'm trying to think of the best combination, be it a 3 or a 5, whatever you want to call it. I mean, what's your thoughts on? That's where we got strength in depth, isn't it?
Yeah, I think overall the 3 centre halves are pretty solid. McNally's come in and done a good job. Hasn't really done anything that makes you think we've got any concerns at the back. I think there was a little bit of because we've conceded 3 times now, 3 goals. But apart from that, at the back we look relatively solid. But we've got
Millwall.
We've got that away games. That was 3-0 losses away. But what about Rob Atkinson?
Well, I mean, Rob Atkinson. I mean, it's coming up 2 years now.
2 years since Sunderland. Yeah.
When's he out of contract?
I've got a list of contracts here, courtesy of Dave Febb. Rob Atkinson is out of contract in summer of 26. So realistically,
when's is Dickey out of contract in summer?
Rob Dickey, he signed a contract. Where are we now? Rob Dickey, summer 24. He was retained. He's out of contract in the summer, but he's got a 1-year option, like we got for Sykes, according to that. So we haven't got to worry about that. Let's get Gary's view on that. On if it's a 3, what's your best 3, Gary, based on what we've seen so far?
Well, I think that would be pretty obvious to me at the minute. Viner, McNally, Dickey. Well, I'm looking. I've just wrote the defenders: McCrory, Tanner, Roberts, Naismith, and Atkinson aren't even in the team. Then we've got a recognised back 4. Right back isn't where Zach Viner is going to play long term.
No,
and I think we all understand that, and I don't think that will particularly do Zach any good playing at right back because you want to play centre half. So lots and lots of options. We have got strength in depth, but Rob Atkinson is really interesting because that is a long time to be injured, and he's been on the bench a couple of times, and he's not getting onto the pitch. So that's got to happen at some point, and it can only be, I think, coming off the bench to build up his minutes. I can't see him starting the game.
I mean, he could have when we played Plymouth. We were 4-0 up in that game. He gave Sam Bell 5 minutes, but we were 4-0 up with about 20 minutes to go. You could have brought Rob on then and given him a run out. And what you didn't want, and maybe if he'd have done that, would Rob have been a better option to come on with 5 minutes to go against Sunderland? So and let's look at it this weekend, coming up against West Brom. We could go to West Brom, we might be leading 2-1, and then McNally gets injured, or Dickey, or Vine, or whoever's in there. Rob comes on, bit of a baptism of fire when you've been out for 2 years if you're coming on to defend a lead like that, isn't it? Or even hang on to something, a draw.
Yeah, you've got to get fit at some time, no? You can't just be injured for the rest of your career. You've got to have a starting point.
What do you think, Tom, about Rob Atkinson?
I'd be surprised if he started many more games for us, to be fair. But in the summer, because of his injuries, do you want to take a risk and sign a player who's been out injured for 2 years? That's another problem, especially if he's under contract till 2026. He'll want to be playing if he's fit. So but I wouldn't have him over any of Dickey, McNally, or Viner when fit. So I'm not sure how that's going to pan out. But yeah.
What about Hayden Roberts in that setup then, Tom?
Hayden Roberts is a left back or a left wing back. I mean, playing him, he got subbed on at Watford at right back, and Sunderland, as Ellie said earlier, at right back, and I mean that was criminal. That was absolutely criminal because that's not his game at all. And so I think
their goal came down that side.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a left back, you want to be playing left back. You don't want to be coming on as sub 5 minutes playing right back when you're trying to hold on. I didn't understand that, but
I think it's Sunderland, and I'm only trying to be fair here. They were getting a lot of joy down the left hand side, Sunderland.
Yeah,
and they brought them on to try and shore up that side. And as soon as they brought them on, Sunderland changed the player that had been brought on to Mark. So he sort of stranded there, and as it turned out, circumstances, he maybe got a little bit of blame for the goal. But I understand it wasn't like he's just chucked on there. I think there was a reason behind that.
Yeah, but I thought at Watford it didn't work when he got subbed on there. I didn't think he'd do it again, even as you said, to shore up the right side. But it's an interesting one. We got so much depth in defence when all fit. I just don't see like McCrory be wanting to start, but he'd probably go with Tanner at right back. So I don't know.
Well, but then if you look at McCrory's availability, the time he's been here, he had that dreadful complaint or whatever it was up until Christmas last year. We've not seen the best of Ross McCrory, but for me, Tanner, he's proved to be a very, very good signing. He is a reliable championship right back. Would you agree with that view, Ellie, that Tanner, if fit, Tanner's
one of my favourite players, Dave. Yeah. I think the issue when people argue about Tanner is his fault. Obviously, he's a defender first and foremost. There is that little bit of hesitation with George to play the ball forward or to take on his man. But in terms of one-on-one defending, he's probably our best defender at the club. I don't know what it is, but there's something about our right-sided side. We always seem to have injuries, and we always seem to play players when we've got injuries there. It's like we'll kind of just throw anyone in. Scott's played there. Earthy's been playing there.
Yeah.
Viner's been playing there. Sam Bell was playing there when that Birmingham game when he got absolutely. Yeah. Just
Slaughtered.
What is it about our right side?
I don't know. Maybe it's something to do with the grass. Maybe they got the same grass at Ashton Gate on the right side that they got up at the HPC. Another player who's out of contract in the summer, appalling availability record. Nice bloke by all accounts. Gary, Cal Naismith. I can't see. He was when Nigel signed him in the summer of 20. When was it? He was our marquee signing when we had no money, being a regular in Luton's team that had got promoted. But he's just had injury after injury. And then when we played him at the back, he was a liability. If you played him in front of the back, I thought that's where he had his better games. But I don't think he'll be. If he's fit, I can't see him, even if fit, maybe featuring between now and the end of the season.
No, I mean, if he's out of contract, I think a natural progression will be to move on. His record speaks for itself. You couldn't take a risk with him. Atkinson as well. If he's not playing in the team and he's still got a year left on his contract, it'd be really difficult to move him on. He might have to go somewhere on loan because clubs will look at that and say, hang on a minute, he hasn't played for 2 years. Why we're signing him?
Yeah.
And again, just going back to Roberts, I think he had his best run in the team left side centre half when City had the best run under Liam Manning. So
that was back into last season, which you alluded to earlier, wasn't it?
Bringing the ball out from the back, giving a little bit of a free roll, joining in attack. I think he got up the pitch and maybe scored it at Norwich away or somewhere like that. So, again, we've got lots and lots of options, and the time will come, I think, when maybe the size of the squad reduces a little bit in terms of, nine defenders there. We're only going to play 4 or 5 at the most. And if we play 5 defenders, you'd think 2 of them would be more attacking players. So maybe only 3 defenders. So, some thought has to go into sort of the squad development or
composition. Yeah. Well, we've got the youngsters to talk about in a second, so I need to wrap up relatively soon. But one player is out of contract in the summer. This is a really difficult one for the powers that be because it's heart over practicality. Eamon Benarous, he's not played a game for 3 years. Ellie, I don't know what the latest. He's back on the grass, I think now, but that's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, do you give him a year to see if he can get fit? Because there's some player in there, isn't there?
There is. It's just you've got to feel for the lad, haven't you? It's just kind of been setback after setback for him, unfortunately. We all know that ACL is the worst injury that you can get in football. With Robbie's had setback as well from that. But I don't see City giving him a new contract. I think it would be just too much of a risk, and unfortunately, the risk outweighs, like you said, heart over realistic.
Heart over business.
Yeah, I think unfortunately that he will get released and be on that list at the end of the season, which is really unfortunate.
It is.
But
that's life at the end of the day.
Unfortunate.
Tom, your thoughts on that? I mean, it's
a tricky one. I mean, he's had no luck in the last couple of years. I think he's probably been at the academy same time as Gary's lad, Josh. So that's a long old time. But I think they probably might let him go. I think he might find maybe a lower league club. Maybe someone might pick him up in League 2, take a bit of a gamble on him potentially. But yeah, I think the release list could be quite big this year.
They could. I mean, you say they could give him a year extension.
Maybe
put him out on loan to good old Yoba. What's your thoughts on Eamon? Because he's a lovely lad, Gary.
Great lads, great. I know his father. Lovely people. And what I would say, and football tends not to be too sentimental. We all know that. But if he can come through this somehow, and imagine the strength of character it takes to come back from the injuries that he's had and get himself somewhere near fit, then he might just earn a contract. And like you've just said, if he can get to that point, he might be worth keeping for a year. Send them out, Yeovil, Forest Green, or Cheltenham, or a club of such ilk, a local club where they can keep an eye on him. He can come back and train, and then give him 6 months to get some game time. Then bring him back and see if he is up to the mark. But let's see. Someone else will have to decide that.
Okay, all right. Well, the bit that a lot of people have been waiting for, we're going to talk about goalkeeping. Stefan Bajic, I was chatting to Tomo, who's one of the contributors on the text a lot of games, and he watches a lot of the stuff up at the under-23, under-21s, up at the HPC. And he said a recent game up there, he said Bajic was just appallingly bad. Ellie, are we going to sign? If we're going to sign one player in the Jan window, for me, we need it's a goalkeeper, and we want a Nicky Mempar type, don't we? Who's that experienced head that might not mind sitting on the bench, but if Max drops another Rick in the next 4 or 5 games, then maybe we get a goalkeeper who can start.
We've been saying that we need competition for Max probably for the last 2 to 3 years. This isn't just Max has made an absolute clanger. We need competition. We got rid of Bentley and we've brought in keepers that aren't, that are just going to be happy to be behind Max.
Yeah.
And I I just think that the club are happy with what we've got for the moment. I think summer is when we'll look to bring in a keeper, but I don't see that they see it as, you know, an urgent issue, really.
But if Max gets injured against West Brom,
I think we've actually been lucky in terms of, I'm still quite surprised that Max hasn't kind of got an injury these last couple of years, like just in general, you know, because you do think what you've just said then, someone's watching our reserve keeper up at the HPC and he's underperforming. So what happened with that incident on Saturday? Say Max did go for the play and gets a straight red. So we then got a keeper that's not had any championship experience or game time, thrown right in at the deep end.
Or we got Luke Thomas who could come in as well, but he's even less experienced. Is it Luke Thomas or Lewis Thomas?
Lewis Thomas, I think.
You know, it doesn't inspire confidence, really, does it? In that area where we're so thin in terms of capability, and then you wonder what the youngsters are the next level down. We'll finish on youngsters in a second. Gary, goalkeeper. I mean, Max, he kept us in it at Sunderland with that save. His punch, it led to the corner that led to the goal against Sheffield United. Up at Portsmouth, he rolled the ball out to Jason Knight, who was calling for it. So you could say they were both culpable there for the first goal. Is he one step away from having to be replaced as a matter of urgency, or is he like the cat with 9 lives? He'll keep on going till the end of the season.
I mean, I know him. I've worked with him. Again, nice lad, and he kept the score down against Portsmouth. No doubt about that. That could have been a lot worse, and he kept us in it against Sunderland. And I still think he got a lot of criticism for the goal. And when we're chatting before offline, Ellie said, if you come that far, you've got to take everything. You've got to either get the ball or you take the player, and he got neither. And we all know that. So I agree with that. But why is he the person that, or 5 yards away from the heart, with basic defending from corners, and it's our setup. I've seen us concede the same goal, but not in the same circumstances, i.e. too many people push too far forward, and one ball in behind catches you out, gets you running back towards your own goal. If you put a man on the halfway line, that does not happen. But yeah, I mean, to compound that, he made a decision 50 yards outside off your goal line. You've got to make the right decision, and he made the wrong one. Yeah, it's been spoken about. Working with someone older and more experienced, I think would get more out of him. Or do you make a decision and say, like, we've been talking about the size of the squad, and then you've just said, David, let's bring in someone to sit on the bench? I don't think that's not the answer. If you bring in a goalkeeper in, the next time you bring a goalkeeper in, he's coming in to be better than what we've got. And that's where we're at.
Well, where we're at, that should apply to all signings we make. We've been saying that for years. You know, we bring players in, they got to be better than we already got, not on a par with what we've already got.
Some of the centre forwards at the minute, they're not better than what we've got. No, they're not in the team.
Absolutely not.
We've got to get it. We've got to get that right.
Just to wrap up the debate on Max, he has kept us in games. You know, when they make mistakes, goalkeeper, it's the most visible. It's as bad as a striker missing a penalty when they commit a mistake. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I still think Max is a good goalie. He makes some great. He seems to be more of a shot stopper. I think he's a better shot stopper than he is with distribution. But I mean, I think, as Gary said, if you want to be getting in a goalie, you've got to get in a first choice goalie who's going to be playing, not someone who's just going to be a training goalie. Because you could pay someone £100 a week if you want to be a training goalie, but you want someone who's going to be have championship experience and who's going to either push O'Leary or be number one. That's my thoughts on it.
All right. All these players coming back to fitness, which they are. Gary, the pathway from the academy. Where's the next big money? Where's our next outgoing asset going to be in the mould of Semenyo, Scott, and Conway? Because
like Elijah Morrison.
The bench is full, isn't it?
Yeah, Elijah Morrison, maybe. A couple of lads out on loan.
Nelson.
Yeah.
Yeboah's back. I mean,
that hasn't worked out for him. So, I mean, he featured regularly under Nigel, but has been put out on loan and hasn't always played up there. Shorter game time. So, I mean, you're looking at Elijah Morrison, I think,
Ray
But,
Nelson, another one.
yeah, Raquan. We've got, we've probably got the biggest squad we've had in years, so it has been a lot more difficult for the young players to find a way through into the first team. And the ones that have made it, we've probably all sold now, bar Sam Bell, I would say. So, it will be interesting. And, I mean, a lot has been made of it. They got the semi-final of the FA Youth Cup last season, done really, really well. So, you wonder where one of those, where one or two of those players are. I mean, the young fullback that played at Cardiff under Nigel, he hasn't really kicked on. You haven't seen him feature again. So, it like I say, we're focusing on the senior players, but there has to be a pathway. And we have to make sure that we keep bringing and developing young players as well.
Ellie, Gary's just said bringing on and developing young players. Liam, obviously, he's focusing on finishing high in the league. But if we're in a situation in half a dozen games' time, it could quite easily be like this, where we need 2 points a game to get to that 73 points, which seems to be... He would get a lot more credit if he did blood some of the youngsters, wouldn't he, in the last 10 games of the season. People would not criticise him if he gave them a half, even if it was to start the game and bring on some of the more experienced players. But the whole philosophy of recent years has been about bringing youngsters on and selling them on at a profit. And the pipeline's running a bit thin at the moment, isn't it?
Seems to have kind of come to a halt a little bit in terms of bringing them through a little bit more, in terms of even putting them on the bench. But like Gary said, because we've got a bigger squad now, it's going to be harder for them to get their camo appearances, etc. You go back to Joe James, I think his name was, the right back that came on at Cardiff. Yeah, but why did he come on against Cardiff? Because we were down to the bare bones and we had 7, 8. It was ridiculous the amount of injuries that we had that game. Elijah Morrison looked really good when he came on, but then he's kind of drifted and is not really in and around even, making the bench much anymore. It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because we want to see them come through, but then we weigh up that we've got a lot of players out of contracts as well heading towards the end of the season. So we're going to have players that are playing for contracts. But I would like to see them come through more. Yeah. It seems to have just kind of come stale a little bit with that.
I think both the guys are spot on. I think there's clearly talent, and we've seen it in recent years, but it has sort of dried up a bit now. I do think Campbell's slow. I watched him a couple of times for the under-21s, and he looks good player, left foot, looks tidy. And the other lad,
Jamie Knight,
Billy Phillips, is it?
Oh, Billy Phillips, he's
bench, I think. He looks tidy as well. So I think that it's just getting the chance. So, I mean, we got such a big squad now that are they really even going to, as Ellie said, get a cameo or even get on the bench? That's the problem.
I mean, I think the other thing as well, looking forward, I mean, we were talking about players out of contract in summer of 25, and okay, we got option on Sykes, but summer of 26, I'm not going to go through it now, but there's quite a lot of players out of contract in summer of 26. And realistically, we got to be getting them tied down this summer. Otherwise, they're going to walk out the door for nothing. Yeah. And, and what are we left with, sort of thing? Yeah. So we've got to have those youngsters coming through. It was interesting. I did a quick review on Saturday after the game against QPR, the goal that we conceded against Wolves on the penultimate day of 2017. And when Frankie Fielding came rushing out, and we were still, and he took their player out, and got sent off. And we never seem to recover from that. But in a couple of days' time, it's the 7th anniversary of the famous win over Man United. So here's a little, not a quiz as such, but let's look at a player for player, 7 years down the line, who played that night and whether they get in our team today. All right. So I've got the team here that played against Man United. It lined up in a 4-4-1-1 setup, right? So the in goal was Luke Steele. So right here, right now, if we had a choice of goalkeeper, Max, Frankie, or Luke Steele.
I'm going to pick them all. The big Man United. You pick them all. All of them getting in the team.
Yeah.
One of the best wins ever.
Yeah. No, all right. Just look at the 2017-18 team, which was our last concerted effort at the playoffs, because we had 48 points before we went into that game against Wolves. And then the last 20 games of the season produced 20, and that's the closest we've been in like 16 years. Okay, so goalkeeper, just player for player. Luke Steele or Max O'Leary?
Ellie, you're first.
Go
on, Ellie.
I think, well, we're going to say Steele based on that game.
Tom?
I'd say O'Leary. I'd have O'Leary over. Yeah.
Okay, Gary?
I'm going for Max.
You go for Max? All right, across the back, this is a 4, right? And so assume the City squad are all fit now. Yeah, so that means like people like McCrory and Tanner. So the back 4 that day was Bailey Wright, Aidan Flint, Nathan Baker, and Order Magnuson. Now, how many of those, look at it this way, how many of those would you have in today's lineup at a heartbeat if they were still the age they were 7 years ago? You first, Ellie. Which of those 4?
Only Baker.
Only Baker. That's
Really?
Interesting. That's interesting. Tom, who would you have?
I'd have Flint, and I think I'd have Flint. I wouldn't have what's his face?
Bailey Wright.
Bailey Wright.
No, I wouldn't have. No, I think just Flint. I don't think I'd have Baker in either over Dickey or McNally. I think just Flint, to be fair.
Okay. And who would you leave out? Who would you leave out of our central defensive pairing then to bring Flint in?
Ooh.
I didn't ask you that one, Ellie, but go on, Tom.
I think you've got to drop over McNally or Viner. Well, say drop McNally and have Flint alongside Dickey. That would be
all right. I won't bother. There's left and right footed.
Yeah.
What would you do out of that? Out of those 2, Gary?
I'd have.
Out of 4, who would you have in the 4?
I'd have Aidan Flint in the side because he's fully fit. And what did he score? 15 goals one season.
He did. Yeah, promotion.
So he can add that. So he out the
that was 3 years before though.
He did hook that one off the line. He did hook that one off the line in the semi-final up at the
Man City.
Up at the where they play.
Well, if we're talking about everyone sort of playing the best football, then I'd have Aidan Flint.
All right. If you look at the midfield 4 that night, going from right to left, you had Josh Brownhill, Marlon Pack, Corey Smith, and Joe Bryan. Yeah, so Joe.
Oh.
That's a good team.
This is tough. This is tough ass. This.
I mean, I'll give my view on this. I'll give my view on this. I mean, going back to the just quickly back to the back 4, Order Magnuson, I would have. Who we got at left back? I'd have Cam Pring ahead of Order Magnuson. All right, so that's just on that. But if I look at that 4 that played, then Josh Brownhill's in my team today. Josh Brownhill out of that 4.
I'd have Brownhill. I'd have Joe Bryan as well. Yeah, left-footed, left-sided. He could get forward. Obviously, scored against Man United.
That's playing into that argument for having Hayden Roberts with Pring in front because they can alternate. I mean, just jumping off message at the moment. What do you say, Ellie? Brownhill in there?
Absolutely, Josh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom?
Marlon?
I think I'd have all 3 of the 4. I'd have Brownhill, Bryan, and Corey Smith.
Okay.
Yeah, that is a good midfield. Let's be fair.
Yeah,
creativity. So no Jason Knight. We're all raving over Jason Knight.
Well, you might get him further up the pitch.
Yeah, all right. So then we play the 1-1 in the hole. Jamie Patterson. Jamie versus Scott Twine versus Bird versus Knight. Ellie.
Tricky. Oh. Pato was great when he was great, but Pato was a kind of a 1 in 10. He's a bit like Anis.
Yeah. All right.
I think I'd have Knight.
Who would you have, Tom?
I'd have Knight. I think Knight is mustard at the minute, to be fair. Patterson was good, don't get me wrong. He was good, but he didn't, as Ellie said, he didn't deliver every game, which is what in this team, especially how good this team was. I mean, you wanted to push on, but I'd have Knight.
Gary.
Yeah, I would. I mean, still trying to get midfielders to play in the wrong position, but if that's the choice, I'd have him in my team before Patterson.
All right, and then when we get to the top of the field, because that 2017-18 first half of the season, we'd signed a hallmark signing for Maradiju, and he didn't bloody play. He was injured for most of that. And Lee Johnson played his best football when he had a limited number of players to select from. But up front that day, who's made a bloody good career for himself since he left City. I'm really pleased to see him tap one in for Leicester when he was set up by Jamie Vardy. Can't believe he's 30 years old now. But up front is Bobby Reed. I mean, what could we do with somebody like him? Yeah, that's a no-brainer. That one.
Blame in the team. Do with them. Bobby all day long. Well, I mean, he scored 20 goals one season.
That season, wasn't it?
It was just one season because a lot of people would have been let him go because he almost went on loan to Plymouth, didn't he?
Yeah, but I mean, was that? I should ask Lee Johnson. Was that just a masterstroke or a complete bit of luck? That
I think it was. I think it was by chance. That was.
But it
worked. Lee would probably say it's a masterstroke, knowing Lee. But all right, look, that was good to end on a little bit of fun. Gary, you're doing one of your pint of pint things with Jeff at where? Still
back
tickets
at the
available for that on Thursday night?
Actually, probably a year since we started. I think this is number 5.
Yeah.
They've all been really good fun. We've got Rob Newman tomorrow and Scott Davidson. So
I'll see you tomorrow, Gary.
Get yourself along. Look forward to seeing you.
And have you got any? Because some people might be listening to this after the event has been on. Have you got any plan for the new year?
We've got a new one, I think, advertised in Longwell Green, and that should be early February. So we're trying to get different guests. We try not to make it the same thing. It's been really well supported. And hopefully, if you're looking for something to do on a Thursday evening, which is when most of them have been held, then get yourself along.
All right, well, make sure you text me when the one's on in Feb, and we'll give it whatever publicity we can. Tom, Ellie, Gary, thanks ever so much for coming on this tonight. It's been a good laugh and some interesting chat. We've had a couple of hundred people watching at various times. I'm sure some people watch for 10 minutes and then go away and listen to it the next day on their podcast. But thanks ever so much for that. We'll do another one with some other illustrious names associated with the club sometime in Jan, maybe at the end of the window or something like that. But for everybody who's joined us tonight, thanks a lot for listening and Merry Christmas, everyone.